What's up, folks? Welcome to the latest episode of Marvel Standom, and this is our biggest one yet. We are talking about the season finale of Loki, and with me for all time and always, I have Den of Geek news and features editor Kirsten Howard and Den of Geek TV editors Alec Bajalid and Kayti Burt. So this week, we meet the man behind the curtain. Kirsten, why don't you tell us all about this episode?
In Marvel's Loki episode 6, Loki and Sylvie confront He Who Remains, a variant of a human scientist from the future who discovered the multiverse, and he explains that he created the TVA to prevent a multiversal war.
That is a fair summary, but it kind of feels like an oversimplification, doesn't it? Like this was intense, and it was intense considering that there's very little in the way of actual action. What did everybody think of this episode?
I loved this episode so much. It seems like if you are paying attention to the MCU, you know what direction this is all going in, right? It seems like there needs to be a multiversal war, or at least a multiverse. And I think because of that, the fact that this episode kind of leaned more into more of the like character and emotional stuff made a lot of sense, because there was never going to be the amount of suspense in that that plot question, I think, as compared to what choices will Loki and Sylvie make, and what will those choices say about how these characters have or haven't grown over the course of the season.
I told Kayti that I liked this episode only in hindsight. I wasn't sure I liked it in the moment, and I think the reason for that is essentially the post-credits scene. Because to this point, we have only known the Disney Plus streaming shows as singular entities. WandaVision was its own thing, not getting a second season. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, God help us all if that gets a second season. Getting that simple phrase, Loki will return in season 2, establishing this as a continuing story really brought the whole thing together for me. Because if this had ended with an oblique conversation with He Who Remains and then a weird Planet of the Apes ending type thing, I think I would have felt a little cold by it. But knowing that this is the first step in a longer journey really solidified the whole experience.
Yeah, well, it feels like the first of this era of Marvel TV series that takes advantage of being a TV series. And I think that, yeah, for me, there was also an excitement in that, Alec. This just felt like the first of these, 3 Marvel TV series that, even though the multiversal war part may have been somewhat predictable, it felt like the boldest and the most interesting conclusion so far.
I mean, we've talked about it before. How do you make things in the MCU exciting after Endgame, which wrapped up so many stories? And they found the answer in Loki. You just blow it all up. And now anything can happen. We can see variant versions of characters who are dead in the MCU re-emerge. We can see different versions of characters who are still going emerge in the MCU. There's a lot now on the board for Marvel to play with going forwards.
In other hands, multiversal storytelling can really fall apart pretty quickly. But like Kevin Feige and the team at Marvel Studios, if anybody can do this right, because like the first thing I always think of now is like, this is just an excuse for them to do fan service, right? And of course, this opens the door for all of the rumors about Spider-Man No Way Home to be true, and it's like, okay, well, this is like, is it really going to be advancing the story if it's bringing characters in from other versions of Marvel movies and TV shows, or is it really advancing the story if dead characters can come back? But like, you got to trust these people at this point. Like, I don't know what else to say. So I didn't think I would be so on board with this. If anybody remembers what we talked about in our early episodes regarding the state of the multiverse in the Marvel universe, I was a little bit skeptical. After this episode, I'm not. I'm like totally on the on the branch timeline variant train.
This is something we talked about in a past episode. Not really knowing what role these TV series would play in the larger MCU, and I think that's one of the things that's most exciting about this episode is knowing they are like, things can happen in the TV show that have such major ramifications for the movies. You're right, Mike. Like, Marvel has earned so much like goodwill and faith over the last decade plus of storytelling, that it excites me to see them becoming more ambitious in terms of storytelling across different platforms and structures.
And it's kind of fitting that they've put He Who Remains, Immortus, Kang at the center of what could be an insanely complex story, because he is a migraine to read in the comics. Like
my Kang.
Yeah, he's just it's a mess if you start to read about it in any depth. So, maybe two wrongs do make a right.
I was saying, I'm ready for Kang time.
Let's
Kang time. Well, we are officially in Kang time, and we kind of entered Kang time. Oh.
Whoa.
Oh, all right, ladies and gentlemen, watching this show right now, fellow Marvel stans, hashtag Kang Gang when you want to talk to us about this show. But
I love that you prepared that, Alec.
Yeah, that was completely unrehearsed and took the host by surprise. Well done, Alec. Before we get into the implications of who He Who Remains is, let's just talk about Jonathan Majors' entrance into the MCU here. Does this work for everybody? I mean, this was like 15 straight minutes of exposition or something like that. How does everybody feel about that?
I thought he was fantastic. The camera just was slowly going in on him and then just pulling out again as he was talking. It was a great performance, I thought, but it's interesting because some people who might have had a problem with his performance as a sort of deranged version of Kang at the end of time, who's been sat there for millennia or whatever, trying to maintain the timeline. We might, when we see him again, he might put in a completely different performance as a different variant of himself. So, though I personally loved his performance, if you didn't, you may well see him be completely different next time anyway.
It's funny you mention that because he's doing a performance within a performance, essentially.
Right.
This is a guy who has seen countless multiverses, probably lived for eons. And if you watch his Major's performance, he's cycling through accents. He's cycling through facial expressions. And it's almost like he doesn't know which one to settle on because he's been so many people and fulfilled so many roles for so many millennium. At first, I thought that was, before I glommed onto that, I didn't really get Major's performance, and I love Johnny Majors. He's Johnny to me. He was wonderful in Lovecraft Country, but at first I did not really find that appealing until I understood a little bit more about the character.
Like, I'm so curious about what his performance on set looked like, if he did it the same way every time, or if he's the kind of performer who tried a lot of different things. As someone who is just a critic and lover of this stuff, I loved it.
One moment he was sort of Andrew Scott in Sherlock sort of level villain, and then he was sort of Denzel Washington in Training Day villain, and then he was just very soft spoken and chatting honestly, especially as he got to the end of the sequence.
I think the real version of him, in as much as there is a real version, whatever humanity's left in him, is probably what we see, Kirsten, after he hits the end of time. Like, after everything, he gets that notification that we're in the unknown now. I think that's probably the closest we get to real Kang or real Nate, or whatever we want to call him.
You know, there is this B-plot that's happening in the episode that... we see kind of what's happening at the TVA, and we see Renslayer go into the timeline, which doesn't feel like it should be able to impact the end of time necessarily, because we see a lot of people moving throughout time, and that doesn't have any sort of substantial impact on, this control. But especially with like what's happening with Sylvie and Loki, and also just feeling like that character has some real power and motivation to, screw some things up.
We've been referring to He Who Remains as Kang throughout this chat for kind of like effective shorthand reasons. But I imagine that there is like a portion of the audience who doesn't like fully understand the implications of that. because in the comics, He Who Remains is not Kang. He's a completely separate character. But just for the purposes of this, because everybody's been talking about Kang the Conqueror, including us, for weeks now leading up to this, and Jonathan Majors has been cast as Kang the Conqueror for Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but he's never referred to as Kang here, and he's not even credited as Kang in the end credits of the episode. He is He Who Remains. But make no mistake, that is a version of Kang. And basically what people need to understand about Kang is the guy has had a lot of different names. It's really headache inducing keeping track of who he has been at different points in history. But the way that that He Who Remains kind of lays it out is, fairly accurate in terms of, there are other dimensional versions that are kind of, warring for supremacy here. It does seem like He Who Remains is like one of the less malevolent Kangs, and they've kind of combined him with a version of Kang known as Immortus, who I can't really say too much about without giving myself a serious headache. As Kirsten pointed out earlier, the next time we see Jonathan Majors wearing purple, he's not going to be given the same kind of performance. He's probably going to be more of like the traditionally power-hungry and villainous Kang that people might be expecting out of a potential big bad for the MCU.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that this guy has many names, but he's the same person. Let's and in the comics you would probably call him Nathaniel Richards, right?
No.
All right, forget that.
Like he might be descended from Nathaniel Richards. He might be descended from Victor Von Doom. He mentions here that, some have called him a ruler. Well, he was Pharaoh Rama Tut at one point. He has ruled places as Kang. He says people have called him a conqueror. That's Kang the Conqueror right there. I wouldn't be surprised if even the kind of traditionally villainous central Kang that we're likely to meet in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania ends up being killed and defeated, and it's like a red herring, and then there's like another Kang immediately waiting to take his place. There is a council of Crosstime Kangs that is not only like Kang variants, but it's like aliens and different people and robots from different dimensions that Kang has attempted to conquer. Yeah, that has attempted to conquer.
I want to meet them.
You will. He's attempted to conquer, failed, and then they take on the mantle of Kang. This is how totally bonkers all of this stuff is. And it's really tough to explain here, but I think the simplest way to say it is the version of He Who Remains that we get here on Loki is a Kang, and there will be many more Kangs that we will meet in the course of this, with probably one central Kang who is a safe bet to be the big bad of Marvel Phase 4 overall.
As confused as some people might be by Kang, He Who Remains, Immortus and all that stuff, I think the MCU is going to make it easier to pass.
What decision would you have made when faced with He Who Must Remains, or He Who Remains? I feel like I need to say that in a different voice, like He Who Remains.
You're getting it confused with He Who Must Not Be Named.
I know. I think Harry Potter fandom, it runs deep. Yeah, when faced with that choice, and do you think, this might be the same question or not, do you think Sylvie made the right choice?
I'm glad you asked, because I did consider it moments after they posted that in the episode, and I absolutely would have taken over the TVA. And not even just because I'm a megalomaniac, which I probably am, but it just seems like he mentioned there's a backup option anyway. If it doesn't work out, then just end time. Who cares? Retire from the TVA and go back to Entropy. But I don't see the harm in giving it a shot, seeing if I can be Time Lord better than anybody else can.
I think that's kind of the beauty of the way that scene plays out, is that they both have a point, and I don't necessarily trust Loki's motives, even though they appear to be pure there, but neither of them are wrong. And what I found interesting, and I promise this is the last time I'm going to do this regarding this, I did just read the only proper comic book appearance of He Who Remains, which I will once again add is not Kang in the comics. That's something that they kind of conveniently grafted on here. But something almost similar plays out, except it's Thor and Jane Foster kind of like playing out that tension of like, do we wipe this guy out or not? It's like, no, let's hear what he has to say.
I probably would have made the same decision as Alec, but that's more because I'm uncomfortable with chaos. I think that Sylvie's decision, I understand why she made it, and I think it's much more democratic.
Yeah. I bet if we got Michael Waldron on the phone right now and we asked him what the goal of writing this entire show was, I think he would say that the goal of the show was when Loki says, "I just want you to be okay" to Sylvie, for it to be the first unambiguously true thing he's ever said in his life. And I think they pulled that off. I got some Mormon fuzzies. And that does appear to me to be like the most genuine Loki moment yet.
I kind of interpreted it as though he didn't want her to make the same mistakes as he had, and therefore just live with that level of regret, because he has been living with it, for so many years now and has seen how it's played out and doesn't want that for her. So it did feel like a genuine moment.
What does a season 2 look like from Loki, considering that before we get that, we're going to have Spider-Man No Way Home, which is going to explore the multiverse, at least according to all the rumors that we've heard, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is also going to bring in Wanda from WandaVision, who it's entirely possible pulled the souls of her children in from another timeline based on the logic of this show, right?
That's so weird, man.
Right? I love just coming in out of context of some of these phrases.
I wonder whether you can view the post-credits WandaVision scene now as her experiencing the moment when the multiverse opens up, and her hearing those voices.
Ooh, I like that.
We should keep in mind that historically, the Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of unfolds in real time, like more or less a couple of little things here and there. Like the movies correspond to, the year that they are released. And then, with the 5-year time jump in Endgame, though, now there's like a few things that have to happen in order for us to, for our reality to catch up to the MCU reality, So I would have to imagine that Kirsty's theory here is probably true. It means that all this stuff that's happening in Loki is happening either before or roughly concurrently with WandaVision. The post-credit scene in WandaVision is definitely takes place almost at that exact moment. I don't know. It's kind of a neat way to look at things, and it's all barreling towards something. I mean, it still feels like Marvel is saving their bullets for the big screen.
It's obviously hard to speculate about what season 2 might look like, given we don't even know where it will fall in the sequence of MCU. But I do think that it might be a safe bet to assume that at least part of it will take place within the remnants of the TVA or whatever the TVA looks like. Potentially. It's not safe to assume anything at this point. We also didn't spend that much time jumping through time in this show, which I was expecting going in, and I don't think that we need to do that, but that is something that I think future seasons of Loki could embrace. Should they not have as clear of a plot purpose that's linked to the larger MCU.
When it comes to my wish list for what I want from season 2, number 1 is to see Kayti again. And all the other numbers are also see Kayti again.
Casey, are you okay? Text us.
I'm a little disappointed and frankly annoyed, Kirsty, that Alligator Loki does not appear anywhere on your list. I would die for Alligator Loki. So
well, I'm hoping Alligator Loki comes up before season 2 of Loki.
He's obviously a film character.
Maybe we could get Alligator Kang in the next one.
Whoa.
even though they said from the start that these Disney Plus shows would like really matter and really impact the MCU, Loki's the first one that actually does. Because you could very well go from Endgame to wherever Wanda is in Doctor Strange 2, and it's just like, yeah, Wanda is still messed up from Vision's death. You don't necessarily, like, I can't imagine a world where you really need to know what happened in WandaVision to get Wanda's story if you skipped WandaVision and just went from Endgame to Doctor Strange 2. And when Captain America 4 comes out, which will feature Sam as Cap in that awesome Cap costume, which is the best thing that show did for us, like, what do you need to know? Like, he got the shield at the end of Endgame and now he's Captain America. Like, nothing else that really happened there is all that consequential. It's like Bucky went to therapy. He's a little bit more at peace now. Like,
excuse me, Mike. Excuse me. A boat got fixed.
Boat got fixed. Thank you, Kirsten. I apologize.
I accept your apology.
Mayhaps it's the time that we rank these 3 shows.
Mayhaps.
Have at it.
We're gonna rank it.
Alec loves a ranking.
Yeah, so number 1 is obviously Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Obviously.
But for me, I'd go 3 Falcon Winter Soldier. Loki, I feel like, is probably technically better than WandaVision, but I don't think in my heart WandaVision can be unseated just yet for me. I'm gonna have to go WandaVision number 1. It's just too good of a fit with me personally. Love that TV angle. The ending was less than ideal, but what a fun experience watching that was for 9 weeks.
So I'm Falcon. Sorry, guys. Number 3. I am the opposite of you in the sense that I actually think WandaVision might be a better show in some ways. Like, but my preferences as like what kind of stories I like, Loki definitely hits a lot of them. Yeah. So for me, Loki is number 1.
Yeah, I would find it hard to pick between WandaVision and Loki for the top show of these 3. I'm not willing to rank them. Sorry. Wow. I can't do it right now. I'll rewatch them, because what I like to do is like take some time, go back, rewatch them and reevaluate, because sometimes when I'm first watching MCU offerings, I'm so excited and so absorbing like what's coming at me that I'm not really experiencing it as thoroughly as I could be. So I tend to rewatch them.
I got to kind of go with the conventional wisdom here and put Falcon and Winter Soldier at number 3. It hurts because this drew on an era of the comics that I particularly love. It was another show very influenced, like Loki, by the work of Mark Gruenwald, who's one of my favorite Marvel writers of all time. I think Sam and Bucky are great, and I love seeing Sam with the shield, but the show just didn't quite hold together. It's a little tougher to kind of pit Loki and WandaVision against each other, and I kind of respect Kirsty refusing to do that. But Loki, I'll say that Loki had the stronger final act. Like not just the last episode, but maybe the last 2 episodes. I think it really brought its story home in a more satisfying manner. I really appreciate the fact that it didn't kind of resort to some of the stuff that Marvel often does in its final act, which WandaVision definitely did. But pound for pound, I got to give it to WandaVision. It was more inventive. It was more mysterious. For all the fun that we've had speculating about the stuff that happened here on Loki, I don't think it quite had that buzz and that total what the hell is happening here that we had in those first 3 episodes of WandaVision. So I'm giving WandaVision the edge here. But it's tough. Well, look, that's what we think about the season finale of Loki. And I love that we can say season finale and not series finale. But let's see what the fans are saying. us know what you thought about Loki. And let us know what you think about the MCU in general. And let us know what you think of Marvel Standom. Tell us in the comments. Tell us on Twitter at Marvel Standom or at Den of Geek US. Go to denofgeek.com/Marvel and read our articles and comment there. We want to hear from you. Tell us what you want to see us cover in future episodes of the show, because we will be back. We're going to take next week off, and then we'll be back with all new episodes of Marvel Standom, checking out everything the MCU has to offer. So thanks for hanging with us, and until we see you again, stand together, folks.
Thank you for watching Marvel Standom. We'll be back soon with all the hottest updates from the MCU. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Den of Geek US. Watch us live on Twitch at Den of Geek TV, and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Den of Geek. Follow at Marvel Standom on Twitter and submit your burning MCU questions to marvelstandom@denofgeek.com.